We did the original Fog, now let's talk about the remake. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well out there. And today we're going to talk about the 2005 remake of The Fog. But before we get into it, like, comment, subscribe. Join me here. I greatly would appreciate that. Click on the little notification bell. That way every time I upload a video, you'll be notified. And you can come back and check out what the hell I got going on over here. Especially hit the subscribe button and the like button. I greatly appreciate it. It helps with the YouTube algorithm and helps me get to 500 subscribers. And I appreciate you all coming back and checking out my content. Now, this is a remake I have never seen. Now, I just reviewed John Carpenter's The Fog on Monday. And I love that film. Gave it 9 out of 10. It's a movie that's near and dear to my heart ever since I was a child. I have never seen the remake. I remember the trailer. I saw clips of it, but never sat down and watched the whole movie. I ignored it in theaters, didn't rent it, never saw it. I bought a used DVD on Amazon for $4 delivered because it's not streaming anywhere, at least not on the streaming services I'm subscribed to. So I bought a DVD and I figured the unrated cut. So that's what I'm going to go off of, the unrated version. It's only 3 minutes longer. I'm sure it doesn't make much of a difference. But again, I love the original John Carpenter's The Fog. So this is a fresh watch for me when I sat down last night to watch this. It's my first time ever viewing this film from start to finish. So let's get into it. Now, the remake craze in the 2000s was strong. I mean, movies have always been remade, but horror remakes in the 2000 to 2010 were coming at us left and right. The kick started off in 2003 with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre by Platinum Dunes, which I will be reviewing over the next coming weeks. And I like that movie. It's a very well done remake. But this year, the 2005, when this got released, we had the Amityville Horror remake with Ryan Reynolds. We had another John Carpenter remake, Assault on Precinct 13. And in this film, there was a lot of horror remakes. Well, Assault on Precinct 13 is not a horror movie, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of remakes coming out that year. So by the time this came out in October, this dropped on October 14th of 2005, right in time for Halloween, I was kind of over it. It was PG-13. I wasn't really interested in seeing it. There were some people in the cast I liked, but everything I saw, the trailer and some clips, it just didn't look good to me, so I ignored it. And then the reviews came in, and it got annihilated by professional reviewers, and then with the advent of the internet more and more, reviews online were just hard for this film. So let's talk about what I thought of it. Now, again, like I said, this came out October 14th of 2005. The unrated version is an hour and 43 minutes long, had a budget of $18 million, and upon release, it made 29 in America and 46 worldwide. So it did make a little bit of money. Now, they chose Rupert Wainwright to direct this film. He's mostly known in horror circles for Stigmata, if you've ever seen that film. I'm not a huge fan of that film, but I have seen it. So they brought him in to direct it, and they moved Antonio Bay instead of a coastal town in California to an island off of Oregon. So it's Antonio Island off the coast of Oregon this time. So we kind of moved where our action takes place, although they shot this in Vancouver, Canada, and you can tell. Our cast-wise, we got Tom Welling playing Nick Castle, the role that was played by Tom Atkins in the original. Selma Blair plays Stevie Wayne, taking over for Adrienne Barbeau, and Maggie Grace plays Elizabeth, taking over for Jamie Lee Curtis. But in this film, her name's Elizabeth Williams, so she's related to the woman in the original film was played by Janet Leigh that is setting up this town's centennial celebration, and they're doing the same thing in this film. This film pretty much takes the same overall general plot of the first film and just amps it up in terms of, because there's a little bit more story about the Elizabeth Dane. We definitely get more backstory into Blake and his people and what happened that fateful night. That's pretty much where we spend we spend a lot more time with them, because the original Fog's only an hour and 30 minutes long, so this one's 13 more minutes. We see more of them and how they got screwed by the townspeople, and the townspeople stole their gold or their treasure to help their communities. And there's a little bit going in the history about how the town was struggling, and then all of a sudden 1871, when they got rid of Blake and his people, then the town started to flourish. They started building downtown, and the town really took shape after that because they killed these people and took their money. They keep the same general plot where Blake and his people have leprosy, so they didn't want a leper colony living on the island with them. And the four town elders are the ones that committed this crime, this atrocity. And we still got Father Malone, although this time Father Malone doesn't have as big of a part, and the actor is not as good as Hal Holbrook. He's okay, but it's not Hal Holbrook, and watching these movies back to back, Hal Holbrook is severely missed. Again, the same general plot, although this time Nick Castle has his own boat and he takes people out on fishing excursions. with his right hand man on the boat, and we see that they set that up. And Elizabeth, they set up Elizabeth lived in town, and her and Nick Castle were a thing, but she took off from New York City. And then all of a sudden, one night she shows back up, and a scene that replicates the Nick Castle scene and Elizabeth scene, the hitchhiker scene in the original film, although they know each other this time, and they kind of fall back in love pretty quickly. And we're introduced to Stevie Wayne, played by Selma Blair, who I've always loved Selma Blair as an actress. She's a pretty damn good actress. I've always enjoyed her performances. And she's fine as Stevie Wayne, but again, watching these back to back, you severely miss Adrienne Barbeau as that character, unfortunately. You can't help but compare them when you watch them that closely together. Or since I've seen the original Fog probably at least 50 times, there's going to be a lot of comparisons. So it's hard for me to... I tried to switch off my brain thinking about John Carpenter's The Fog, but every time Selma Blair opened her mouth on the radio, at her radio station in the lighthouse, just like in the original, it's just in a different spot and it looks different. All I kept thinking about was Adrienne Barbeau. So it's hard to separate. The actors do okay here. They're not like they're awful or anything. I'm just going to get into, we know this plot. It's pretty much the same plot as the first film, just jacked up a little bit. What I liked about this film, I got to go through some positives. I think Tom Welling, Maggie Grace, Selma Blair, and some of the other actors do okay here. I think it was, especially if you're a fan of this film, they had an uphill battle to climb because the original film had such a great cast with Tom Atkins, Jamie Lee Curtis, Adrienne Barbeau, and plus even some of the cast down the line like Charles Cyphers, just great character actors in that original film. And I'm nothing against these actors. It's just they went in a different direction. They hired younger, where in the original film, they were all adults. Tom Atkins looks like a guy who could work a fishing boat. Adrienne Barbeau was a woman with a child, but she looked like a woman, where Selma Blair, even though Selma Blair, she looks great for her age, but she's even a little older than I am, but she looks so young in this film. It's such a departure from that original film. And they decided that was their choice to go younger with their casting. But again, when you're a fan of the original film, you can't help but compare them. You're going to do it all day long, even though if you try to turn your brain off, it's going to happen. And unfortunately, this cast does not stack up nowhere near the original cast. I'm sorry. They do good for what they're given to do. Tom Welling's fine as Nick Castle, although I don't buy him as a fishing boat captain. I just don't. Where Tom Atkins, I could see that. He looks the part. Tom Welling does not. There's some nice shots throughout the film. It's nicely shot, although there's a lot more close-ups in this film than in Carpenter's film, you could tell. And that comes from, I would guess, Rupert Wainwright was a music video director and a TV director for a while, and he directed some films as well. But there's a lot more close-ups in this film, and there's some nice shots of the scenery and all that stuff. I'm not saying it's a badly shot film. Other than that, for positive-wise, in the first half of the film, I was in it. I thought this movie was okay. I really did. I thought it wasn't great, but okay, I'm here for it. It's entertaining enough. There's some things that bugged me, but it's okay. And then the second half or the last act kicks in, and it totally lost me. And I didn't really care for this film. The effects-wise, when the CGI happens, the fog's about 50% CGI, 50% real. You could tell when they're on the set because then it's real fog. When it's a wide shot, like the ocean or the beach, it's all CGI and it looks awful. The ghosts look like shit because they're CGI. Or in the original film, where they had real actors dressed up in the fog and they just hit them in darkness and in the fog, so you couldn't see them except for when you saw Wormface and then Blake at the end with his eyes glowing red when he grabs the gold cross off of Father Malone. So in that respect, that takes you out of the movie too, because the ghosts look like shit. The fog looks like shit when it's CGI. And they amp up the sounds and the soundtrack. The score is not as good as Carpenter's. As a matter of fact, it's a very lackluster score. Although Carpenter's score is pretty iconic, especially to horror fans. Again, the effects don't work for me. When it's practical, the fog and that, it's fine. It looks fine. It looks really good, actually. When it's CGI, when they cut this to CGI to wide shots, it looks like shit. And the ghosts, I don't like how they handle them here. Now, it was a choice. But even in 2005, with the budget they had, they didn't have the money to pull some of these effects off, and the CGI just sticks out like a sore thumb and it takes you right out of the movie. The original film isn't gory. This film has a few shots. I don't know if it's because of the unrated version. I never saw the theatrical. We see somebody burning alive and burning into a crisp. We see a woman who gets the ghost passes on leprosy to the woman who's watching Andy, Selma Blair's character's son in the movie, but it's all CGI, so it looks like garbage now. There's a few moments of minor suspense, but I never felt like there's any real true suspense here. It's all like flashy editing. They amp up the sound noises, the jump scares with the loud sounds, and overall, this is just a very, very mediocre movie. And compared to the original, it's just not good. The second half really sank this film for me. I didn't, and the ending I thought was total horseshit. The way it wraps up, I didn't care for it. Maggie Grace's character Elizabeth ends up going with Blake and turning into a ghost. I was like, what in the F am I watching here? It was just didn't make any sense to me, and I just didn't care for it. When a ghost take revenge, it's okay. There's no sense of urgency here. Where in the original Fog, Carpenter built to that ending scene in the church, and it's urgent. Like they have to solve this problem. In this one, I think the urgency, it just kind of meanders about to the ending, and when the end was just like, I didn't care. Honestly, I just didn't care. So overall, the remake doesn't hold a candle to the original, which I had a feeling, but I tried to go into this with an open mind and give it a shot and see maybe I'll at least enjoy this film. And again, like I said, the first half of the film, I was kind of there for it. It wasn't great. It wasn't even good, but I was having fun on a kind of like I was just having fun with it. I didn't, I wasn't offended by it. I didn't think it was the worst piece of shit I've ever seen. I thought it was okay. Then the second half happens, and I'm like, that's the best they can come up with a bigger budget. Yeah. So overall, this movie really doesn't work for me. Now, John Carpenter and Deborah Hill produced this film. Now, I'm going to give you John Carpenter's quote about what his extent of producing on this film was. His quote was, "I walk in the morning, say hello to everyone, and then I go home." And that's it. This is one of those films that was remade, and John Carpenter's a producer, but he didn't give a shit about it. I don't think, from anything I could tell, John Carpenter really didn't care about this film. Now, Deborah Hill passed away right around the time this went into production. She's still listed as a producer. Sadly, Deborah Hill died of cancer before she could see the finished product. Yeah, and also the other thing I have for you is Tom Welling was shooting Smallville at the same time he was shooting this film, so he was basically going back and forth shooting each project. But overall, this is a very, very, very mediocre. I wouldn't say it's the most abhorrent piece of shit I've ever seen, because I certainly have reviewed other films that I didn't like way worse than this film. But it's not good. And comparing it, like I said, watching it back to back with the original John Carpenter film, which I consider that film a classic, this film doesn't even hold a candle to the original film, from cast, score, even the effects. I think the effects in the original Fog are better than the ones in this film. It's just not a really good movie. And will I ever watch it again? I don't know. Maybe with a friend, if they were curious and wanted to check it out, I would sit down and watch it with them. But I don't know if I'll ever pull this out again. But I'm glad I watched it. Now I know it's not a good remake, and pretty much what I've heard over the years holds pretty true to form. Overall, I would give this film a 3.5 out of 10. Honestly, that second half really sunk it for me. If it would have kept going with what the first half was setting up, even though I didn't love it, it would have got a little bit higher of a score. But honestly, at the end of the day, when the credits rolled, 3.5 out of 10 is about where I'm at on this one. So yeah, the 2005 The Fog remake. What are your thoughts on this film? Have you ever seen it? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video. I would appreciate that. I'll be back on Valentine's Day with My Bloody Valentine, the original, unrated cut. I'm watching that tonight. I'm very excited. It's my first time seeing the unrated cut, so I'm very excited. But I hope you're all doing well out there, and I'll see you soon. Bye.